Well, I'm so glad to be sitting here with both of you. I am talking with Corey Fink and Joe Boyle, who is a history teacher. They are teacher and student at Rogers High School, and we're here to talk about the essay and the research that you've done on behalf of National History Day, which is a national organization. So, Corey, we'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I just finished up my sophomore year here at Rogers at the top of my class.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've been involved with a lot of stuff here at Rogers this year. I think 13 clubs total is what I've done, along with cross-country and track. Well, cross-country was actually last year because that got cut because of budget problems, but it's not important.
Are you, do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have a younger sister.
So you're the oldest?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's 3 years younger than me, and actually our birthdays are one day apart.
Oh, how cool. Makes it easy for the family, doesn't it?
It does. One birthday celebration for the both of us.
Joe, how about you? How long have you been a teacher here at Rogers?
We just completed my 7th year of teaching at Rogers. Teaching is a second career for me. I was involved in journalism from 1998 when I graduated college until 2002, and then I quit and went back to school to become a history teacher because I just kind of felt a calling to do something different in my life, and was lucky enough to catch on in Toledo Public in 2004, and I got to teach at the old building at Rogers, and then transfer over to the new building when we opened up here in 2006.
I'm curious, what kind of journalism did you do?
I was in print. I worked at the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette for a couple of years in Indiana, and then worked for a .com back here called Pencil News, where we had an agreement with MSNBC and did kids news. We rewrote news for kids, so that was kind of my transition step between daily newspapers and career in education.
So you teach American history and government.
Correct.
Here at Rogers. How did you hear about National History Day?
I had heard about National History Day through a training that we had in-service that we had at the beginning of the year. Toledo Public had gotten a grant to work with the Ohio Historical Society and National History Day to get National History Day put into more schools. And so my AP government class started doing National History Day projects this year. And as I was on the website looking for some guidelines for the History Day contest, I came across this workshop, the Normandy Institute, and I thought, boy, that would be really interesting. And we can go into that long story about why that was personally interesting to me if you want.
Yes, I do. Go ahead.
Well, when I graduated from college the first time, I didn't actually have a degree in journalism. I ended up getting a BA in history for a variety of reasons, and I had always been a history nerd in high school, and it had gone back to the stories from my grandparents' generation. My grandpa worked in the war effort, and then 3 of his brothers were in the service. The other 2 brothers were also working in the war effort in factories, but one of the brothers, Paul, was killed in action in July of '44 in St. Lo, France, and so I had always been really interested in Uncle Paul's story, and I ended up doing my senior research project on the combined arms operations in the Bocage area after the D-Day invasions. That was where Uncle Paul had been killed. And it just always been the D-Day invasions and the things that worked and the things that didn't work had always been something really interesting to me. So when I saw this opportunity for a scholarship that would actually send you over there and you would get to visit the cemetery, it was something that immediately spoke to me because I have wanted for the better part of 13 years now to be able to visit my uncle's grave and to be able to go over and just kind of experience it once, just to be able to see everything once. So I got the information, and then it became a vetting process of who would the student member of the team be.
So there could only be, you had to pick the student?
Correct.
And so you teach all grades?
I have mostly sophomores and then one section of AP government that's juniors and seniors.
All right. So you picked Corey over your juniors and seniors.
Over a lot of other really good kids.
Tell me why.
There were a number of factors. I actually put out a little survey. I didn't tell the students what it was about, but I put out a little survey to just kind of collect some information about people. And the questions on there were about what period of history interested you. Do you have any experience in foreign languages? Are you currently holding a passport or able to get one?
Critical point
bunch
there.
Of grade point average was part of it, and then kind of the X factor was personality and stuff. And there were easily 15 to 20 kids that made the cut down to the end. And when it came time to make the final decision, it was a horrible choice to make, because there was no guarantee that we were going to win, but to give somebody this opportunity, you hate to deny it. Giving it to one person means you're denying it to other people. And in the end, it was Corey's eagerness to ask questions. The fact that he always asked questions was the X factor for me in making the decision. Is that he's not a student who he answers a lot of questions in class and he knows a lot of the answers, but the most important thing was that he asked a lot of questions, and that he always challenged me as a teacher. And I thought, when you're doing a project like this project could be, if we happen to get selected, I want somebody who asks a lot of questions. I want somebody who's not content to just know what they know. And that was the big factor.
Well, having the background in journalism, I'm sure you will agree that knowing the right questions to ask is always key. Corey, when you first saw the survey that came out, did you have any idea that you would maybe end up participating in a project like this? And what did you think about it? I mean, what made you decide, yeah, I want to participate in this, I want to answer this survey, I want to see if I can be the one?
Well, the survey was actually just part of a test that he was giving.
So
That's
you
right.
didn't
It was.
know.
I forgot about that.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I put it as like extra credits.
Yeah, it was
That's
extra
right.
credit, right?
Yep, that's right.
I just originally was filling it out for a couple extra points to get over 100%.
Because more than 100 is always good.
Of course. But really, I wasn't thinking too much about the questions there, even though you could piece together that it's something travel related, since it's asking about a passport and foreign language. And it wasn't until the end of class that he actually told me what it was about. And at that point, I was very interested in the trip because, like him, I'm also a history nerd, and this trip is just really the opportunity of a lifetime.
We haven't talked about this trip, so I will put this in the post that I do about what it is. But the National History Organization is going to pay for you all to attend is it a week-long seminar, training, background?
It's roughly 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks.
And things will get complicated here in a minute, too.
It's okay.
The first week is spent on the campus of the University of Maryland, working with grad students from George Washington and history professors from around the country, studying different aspects of the planning of the invasion, the the reason for being of all this, and the what could have happened, what did happen, etc. And then traveling around throughout Washington to different important sites with the National Archive, Fort McNair, a couple other site visits in Washington, D.C. before getting on the plane and then going to France for the second week.
And in France?
And in France, day one is in Paris with some sightseeing in Paris. And then it's on the bus out to Normandy, and in Normandy for 3 days in Normandy. And then in Normandy visiting the village. From one of the books that we had, there were a lot of books we had to read, a stack of books easily measured in feet and not inches that we had to read and report on from the time we got selected in February until now. And one of the books was a diary, a civilian diary of what it was like in occupation, and the workshop is going to visit that village and really get a chance to visit so many of the places that we read and studied about throughout the course of this. And
then it's my understanding you'll also be laying a wreath?
Correct. At the National Cemetery, they'll be laying wreaths and visiting the graves of the servicemen whom the students have researched throughout this. So, Corey, you had to select the servicemen yourself? Yes. Who did you select and why?
I selected John A. Culp.
Spell his last name, please.
Kulp.
Okay.
And I picked him because, well, one, he was from Ohio, and we had to pick someone from our own state.
Mm-hmm.
And also we were given a database of the soldiers from Ohio that died related to World War II. And I was going through the list, looking for ranks that might have made people more or easier to find information about.
Okay.
And he was a captain, so I picked him partially for that reason. And also about him, I found that he won a Distinguished Service Cross. So that led me to find some more things about him. And actually, I have this folder, and I've got some research about him if you're interested in seeing it.
I would. We'll do that after we finish taping. Let me ask this. You selected him, and your task was, in order to submit an application to be included, was to do a research paper. And what other requirements did you have to meet in order to actually submit your application to National History Day?
To get selected, it was more of an essay on why you wanted to do it. We didn't have to do the service member stuff beforehand. We found out about that afterwards.
All right. So you did why you want to do this, and you submitted this, and you are one of 15 students across the United States, 15 student teacher teams.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Are you surprised?
Yes, we were shocked for about 2 days, maybe.
Yeah.
A little more.
I remember I can't remember what the date was, but there was a date by which we were going to know, and that date came and went.
February 15th.
February 15th was
yes, ask Corey, he knows,
the date
right?
that came and went. And I told him in class, I said, well, I haven't heard anything bad or good, so I got to believe they would have let us know if we didn't get it. So I still got a feeling we're in this. And again, just kind of there have been so many kind of, I'm struggling for the word here, which kind of happens a lot. It was, call it a divine intervention, call it a sign, call it whatever you want. But there have been a lot of little things along the way. The last of my grandfather's brothers died on Valentine's Day, and he was my last link to that generation. And I remember telling Corey the day that the 15th. I remember telling him, I said, I got a good feeling about this. I think my Uncle Art's looking out for us on this one. He's going to make sure we get to go. And so I believe that it was another day passed, and then it was the second day, so it would have been the 17th that we. In fact, I'm sure.
What were you saying?
I was going to say I'm almost sure it was the 17th or 18th that we found out for sure. And I had been checking my email all day during classes, all day, and then in the second to last period of the day, in the break between the break before the last period of the day, I checked my email and found out we got it. And I took off at a mad sprint down the main hallway of the school, down to Mr. Eichricht's room, and found Corey in there. And I ran up. I believe your seat was in the middle of the class, maybe second seat back in that classroom, if I'm remembering it right. And I'm just shaking when I walk in there, and I'm like, we got it. And,
you actually showed me your phone.
My phone.
And then nothing came up on the screen, but I had a feeling what you were going to show me.
So even though it wasn't there that you could see it, you knew what it was. And what did your parents say?
Well, they were pretty shocked about it too, especially with the way I told them, because I was just telling them about my day like it was any other day. I took a couple tests, ran a couple miles for track practice. I need to do some research this weekend, maybe go to the library for a project. Oh, and I also need to get a passport.
So they're thrilled with this. I bet
Yes.
they're very proud of you.
I would say so.
All right, so you guys are going to go in June. What's the date in June?
That's the 18th is the first day of the workshop, and then 29th is the last. And this is I guess this is where the story gets complicated. Is that I'm not going now.
You're not going to go.
I'm not going to go, and this is a very long story, but the short version of it is that on March 31st, I went into the emergency room with what I thought were just some pains from a run I had a week earlier, and it turned out to be kidney cancer. And so I ended up getting my kidney removed, and then I ended up with a blood clot issue that's made walking a little bit difficult. And in consultation with the people at History Day, we just kind of made the decision that when we're talking about making 3-mile hikes across beaches, up and down bluffs, that I'm just not physically capable of pulling it off. So I'm still working with the paperwork and all that, and doing the reports and making sure Corey's got everything he needs to go. But I'm deferring until, if they're able to stage the workshop next year, I'll be able to go next year. But right now I'm just kind of focusing on recuperating. So.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It is what it is.
So will you have another teacher go with you, Corey?
Yes, I will.
Who will that be then?
It's not a teacher I know, but he's actually the husband of the woman who's in charge of this trip.
Okay. So you'll have a teacher chaperone to help you with all of your things. Yeah. Joe, I'm so sorry that you're not going to be able to go.
It's okay. I'm completely at peace with this decision.
Wow.
It's something it's something I've always dreamed about doing, and I still dream about doing, and you know.
Will the workshop next year also be on Normandy, or is it going to? Okay,
yeah.
So all right.
It's planned to be that way. They don't know for sure that it's going to happen, but if this workshop goes as well as it's gone so far and continues to go really well, then the hope is that the sponsor will choose to renew for another year.
Who is the sponsor? Do you know?
The sponsor of this is a gentleman named Albert Small.
Okay.
And he's big in the construction and real estate business out on the East Coast.
Okay.
And just tremendously involved with all kinds of historical things, especially in the Washington, D.C. area. There's a museum commemorating the Jewish community in Washington that he has been the major benefactor for in providing a historical building, et cetera. And this was one of his great interests was Normandy and the liberation of Europe.
Well, now that we know all about what's going on, you're going to go for a week out to the East Coast and then over to Normandy for a week. So tell me about Captain Culp.
Captain Culp, well, he's from Franklin County, Ohio. I'll start with that. And I don't have much about his age or anything, but I do know he was promoted to captain after leading a drive on Cherbourg, I believe it was. And that's where he actually won his Distinguished Service Cross for his act of bravery in that operation. He was a part of the 4th Infantry Division, the 8th Infantry Regiment, and his division was actually one of the first to land on, do you know what beach it was? I think it was Utah Beach.
I think you're right.
Utah Beach for the invasion.
Okay.
On D-Day.
What would you say is the most remarkable thing that you learned from doing the research about him? What impressed you the most?
Well, there's a lot of impressive things about this war, but through all the research I've done, not only about him, but through all the readings we've done and studying, it makes you really realize what the human cost of war is. You know, just going through the records of people from Franklin County who died, along with Captain Culp in this war, it was close to 1,000 people, and that's just one county. And then in reading my other books, the survivors, they give very detailed descriptions of what happened in the battles. You realize what a lot of these people had to go through.
Do you think you could do it?
That's kind of a tough call. I would be willing to serve my country. And I think I could handle it, but it is a lot psychologically and physically to deal with. And plus, a lot of people on D-Day knew that they probably wouldn't make it through. So it would be tough.
And yet they went.
They did, yes.
What are you looking forward to most in terms of when you get over to France?
Well, the whole trip's exciting to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're obviously going to be doing a lot of things. I'm kind of interested in walking along the actual beaches where the invasion took place. Mr. Boyle actually gave me a little cartridge to bring him back some sand from Normandy.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yes.
Do you think when you get over there that it will do more than just make it real? I mean, you've read about all of this stuff, and as much as we read about things, do you think that being there will help you understand the experience better?
I think it will. And that was actually a goal of this trip. It was to show that going to the actual sites where things take place help you to better understand the history behind it. And I think that's the case.
Sort of put a human face on all the stories.
Right.
What impact do you think this is going to have on you in your future studies, if any?
Well, I think it will have an impact, but I'm not really sure. It's something that I guess I'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Do you have plans for what you'd like to study in college yet? I mean, you've got plenty of time to decide, but you said you're a history geek.
Yes, and I actually might go into the history field because I know for sure I want to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't really decided on what subject yet.
Well, you're 15, so you've got plenty of time, right?
I do like history, but the one problem I've noticed with that field is there's kind of a lack of jobs lately.
Do you think that that's a good thing or a bad thing? Do you think that history is more important than what perhaps the emphasis we put on it in society today?
You know, in society today, I think we kind of just pass history and social studies off as being learning stories from the past, but I see it more as being able to take the past and use it to interpret what's happening now and what can happen in the future. And one of the big things I like about history and social studies is how it links to cause and effect. I think cause and effect is just something very important to understand, and it also helps you to think long-term and about what the decisions you make can cause.
I see why you picked him.
Absolutely. I think one of the great things about this, and something that's been a struggle, is that this project, more than anything we have time to do in the classroom under the pressures, especially in sophomore classes, it's the pressure of standardized testing from the minute we walk in the door at the beginning of the year to the minute we get through tests in the testing week in March. But I think what Corey's gotten a real feel for here is the struggle of actually doing history, the struggle of actually doing historical research. And in the case of World War II soldiers and our Captain Culp here, something a lot of people don't know is that almost all of the World War II service records were lost in a fire in St. Louis in the 1960s. And these were the records of what awards people won, their date of entry, anything that's part of a soldier's service record literally went up in flames at Page Avenue. And so when you're researching a World War II soldier, you may as well be researching something from the Civil War. And in some cases that might be easier because those records are almost more plentiful than World War II records are. And so you've got somebody like Captain Culp, who's a Distinguished Service Cross winner, a hero in every sense of the word, and yet is almost invisible if you want to try and learn about him. And when you think about the rationale for studying history and how we actually perform history, I think this is a really great case study of both of those things, where you've got somebody who was part of an invasion that sort of proves, many people believe in historical inevitability, that things were going to happen one way and they don't have to. And D-Day was a great example of things didn't have to happen. Things could have gone badly, and they didn't, due to the sacrifices of people like Captain Culp, and yet he's almost invisible. In this age of having information at our fingertips all the time, he's almost invisible, and it's a struggle to find information about these guys from the greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
Corey, did you talk to local vets who had been over there and had participated? Did you know of any?
Well, I do know one veteran from World War II. He's actually related to me on my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
My dad's uncle, I believe. and he's actually not from Ohio, but it was interesting to hear about World War II from him, his perspective some.
Was he willing to talk to you about it? Because many World War II vets, they don't talk about it.
He was willing to talk some, not much though.
Was he in the service during the invasion on D-Day? Did he talk to you about what his thinking was on that day?
Actually, he was a little afterwards, and he wasn't.
Okay.
In World War II, he wasn't directly involved with any fighting.
Okay. That's no less important than those who were, but interesting. Joe, how do you think your teaching of history is going to be impacted by your participation in this project?
One of the biggest things is that, and more so with my AP government class than with my history class, is getting into more primary source research than we already do. That I think in the act of doing history instead of studying history, there's a lot students learn about themselves and about how to research their own history and how to make history something alive instead of just kind of morality tales from the past. That's something I want to work into my practice a lot more in the future after doing this. There were so many opportunities for us through the books and through the discussions, the online discussions that we had for the Institute. There were so many opportunities to really get deep into doing history, into performing historical research, and it's so invaluable. And I hope to really carve out more time in the future to be able to do that with the students.
Corey, do you have to do anything after the trip? Do you have any obligations to report back on anything? Do you have, once the trip has been completed?
Yes. Actually, upon completing this trip, we have to work on a website about it.
Oh, cool. Well, you'll have to definitely get me that information so that I can link to it when I finish putting this on my blog so that people can see. And what are the dates that you're going?
It's the 18th of June to the 29th of June.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then I'll make sure I look for it. Anything else that you think is important to share with people about the experience or the program or anything at all?
Do you have anything?
I'm sure I do, but my deep thoughts are not at the forefront of my mind right now.
What about you, Corey? Advice to kids who might be doing this in the future?
It's definitely something worth trying out. Something like this trip is it's not something you can do every day. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I suggest to people who might want to try it, just keep working hard and go for it.
Because it's worth doing?
Yes, absolutely.
I think a lesson of the prep work and the trip for us has also been when we started getting the books, in the mail. At first it was one book, and we were like, wow, that's a big book that we're going to have to read before we go. And then there were 4 more books a couple days later, and a few more books after that, and we had this mountain of books to go through. And we're both readers, but I think we were both pretty daunted by the fact that it was March and we had thousands of pages of reading to do before June, and even going through it, some of these books were page turners that went really quickly, and some of them were. One was about a 500-page detailed account of intelligence operations in Britain, and it was thick reading. And as we're struggling through this, and actually at that point I was in the hospital, I had nothing else to do with my time except read the books, and I'd email Corey and say, "Oh boy, this is a slog." And then it's all coming together in the past week as we start learning about the specific itinerary of the trip. You start understanding all the pieces, and I think that's probably a great lesson for all of us, whether we're students in high school or college or grad school or whatever, is that there's always a reason for the work you're doing. There's a reason for this work, and you might not know it right now, but there's a reason you're going through what you're going through, and it's gonna pay off in the end. And that was a big lesson I took from that pile of reading and the books that weren't a lot of fun to read, is that they're all coming together now, and that when you're over there, you're going to be in those specific places that you're going to know a lot about. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, my congratulations to both of you. I
Thank
think
you.
this is just absolutely remarkable. And Corey, I'm so envious of the experience that you've had so far and that you're going to have. And I hope that when you get back, I'd like to connect with you again and maybe do another interview and say, what was it? Tell me about it. Tell me what you learned, and we'll talk about that. And then when you get your website done, we'll link to that as well.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Both.
Thank you.